Lagos this morning show where we'll close all of the windows and open a completely different one. My name is Funmi Omobrio.
And I am Olabisi.
And today, on this segment, we'll be looking at a topic which affects us as individuals. If you own a business, have a company, you shop, you buy things. Of course, what we're discussing this morning affects you.
It is no longer news, as last year the federal government proposed a bill called Finance Bill, which is criticized from different quarters.
And the 2019 Finance Bill was assented to by President Buhari on 20th of January 2020 after many deliberations.
However, today on the show, we'll be x-raying the increase in the value-added tax, VAT, from 5% to 7.5% by the federal government.
And what we're trying to achieve this morning is to give you a better understanding of what it means and the implications to the country's economy.
Joining us to x-ray this issue is none other than Mr. Azeez Alatoye. Alatoye. Okay, my apologies on that one. Oh, he's a senior partner, Ascension Consulting Services. He's a tax consultant. Welcome. Good morning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us on the show this morning.
Yep.
And to you, dear listener, don't forget you can be part of this discourse. You can call our phone numbers 0805 897 0897 0805 897 0897 0805 897 1897 0805 897 1897. On Twitter, we're at @_897 FM.
Like we said in our intro, we want our dear listener to have a better understanding of what this VAT increase is all about. Mr. Alatoye, what is the meaning of value-added tax?
Thanks very much. Value-added tax is actually an indirect tax on products which invariably the consumers are expected to pay and is chargeable at each levels of additions or values to any product until it reaches the final consumer. And that's what is called value-added tax.
Okay, so what are the indices or factors that determine the percentage that is charged for value-added tax?
Basically, it's supposed to be based on an economic model, if we want to look at it very objectively. And the question you want to ask is, how does this affect the household? How much do the government want to take from the household for the purposes of the people of that country? So we might want to ask ourselves some questions as to what statistics are we looking at from moving from where we are to where the government put the rates. For instance, do we want to take more from the masses, from the people of the country, and then put in the purse of the government for the use of the people of the country? Yeah, of course, if things are fine, then of course everybody will say that's okay. We need more infrastructures. We know the government needs money, no doubt about that. But again, we look at the circumstances of the people before we say, okay, let's increase the VAT rate. Or we may trade in to say, okay, if we increase the VAT, we are going to drop the personal income tax rate, for example, so that you are not worsening off. Because at the end of the day, really, it's the masses that are going to pay, or the consumers.
Okay, now we have increased 5% to 7.5%.
Let me correct an impression there. The gross rate is 5% to 7.5%, but the effective tax rate in Nigeria is 11% to 16.5%. People have always been saying 5%, 5%. It's not really 5%. It is 11% at least, roughly.
Okay, and then you said something earlier on that they look at if things are fine with the masses because the bulk ends on their table. That's considering right. The increase, was that considered would you say it was really considered the effect it will have on the masses? Were things really fine with the masses to warrant the increase?
I'm not too sure to what extent the economists were involved in the rate increments. What I know is that in 1993, the Professor Dr. Phillips, carried out a survey, and, because he's a professor, he definitely want to base his argument on some statistics. I don't have that information for now, so I wouldn't want to comment on the level of work done to move it from where we are to where we were to where we are going to from 1st of February, as to whether there is a renowned professor who had said, if you do this, you have this level of revenue, it's going to help the masses if you, invest such funds in this way. So I don't have that information, and I don't want to comment really on that. But all I know is that the drive is to increase the government revenue.
Okay, let me go back a little into a statement you made earlier on we assuming that the tax we're paying was 5%, but roughly 11%.
Correct.
Okay, so I just wanted to expatiate on that so we have a deeper understanding of the issue.
Very well. You see, I've had cause from a practical perspective to debate this one, and even had some challenges, with the FRS authorities. We're all working for the same interest. So it's not a question of we against them, no. But let's look at it objectively. If you look at the VAT rates on inputs, you pay 5%. And on a larger percentage of products in Nigeria, for instance, all the oil and gas industry, which account for a higher percentage of operations in Nigeria, that 5% is charged to your cost of operations. So government collect 5% on that. Now, on your output again, if, let's say, you mark up your product by, say, 10% markup on the production cost, all the costs. Now, you apply another 5% on that one, and that goes to the government again. Let's say that's 120 naira, the cost of the sales price. 5% of 120 is 6 naira, isn't it? Now, you've already charged 5% on 100, which is 5. If you add 5 to 6, that's 11% that goes to the government. Now, we talk about refund. That is only where it's easier if you are able to make this refund automatically, but we know it doesn't work out that way. In practice, you charge a whole lot to your financial statement. So you bear it, not being the final consumer. And then again, you also pay 6% on the markup price of that, making 11% roughly. And I have demonstrated this in the practical scenario. For instance, let me give you the discos. The discos are having financial crisis. One of the major challenges they have in Nigeria is VAT. And when they asked me to analyze it, and I look at it, I said, you guys, you are charging 5% to your operations. And again, when you charge equivalent of 6% on the consumers, because you also add your own markup of about 20% to your cost of productions, the government want to deduct that at source. And they said you must pay it 100% to the government. So they've already collected. Somebody argued with me and said, no, but government, doesn't collect up to that percentage. And I said they collected 5% on the value of gas. And gas is about 85% of the cost of production of the discos. So you've collected 5% on the cost. You also want to collect 5% on the sales. Then that's about 11% with due respect. It might not really be a fixed 11%. It could be 10, it could be 10.2, 10.5. We can work out what the effective tax rate is. The manufacturers are suffering. The households are making noise because they didn't know really that the VAT rate is higher than that. They are looking at the preliminary or the gross rate at the point of charge. But when you look at the effective rate of a value chain, it's over 10%, which is around 11%, roughly. Now we are moving it to about 16.5%, not 7.5%. Because 7.5% is on your cost of productions. Now, when you produce and you mark it up by 20%, let's say that's the profit margin you want to make on the gross value. Now you charge 7.5%, on 120, you get 9. And 9 plus 7.5 will give you 16.5. These are the analyses that the manufacturers association need to do. Somebody was telling me, a number of people had called me, the price of things are going up because everybody of course, it's going to go up. And so when it goes up from the cities down to the rural areas, down to the villages. So this is why I said, I don't know to what extent the economists have been able to, because I'm not an economist. I'm an accountant and a lawyer, and I can talk about the fact of accounting numbers that I can see.
So invariably, you do not see this as a win-win situation?
If it is well invested to the extent that it's going to pay people of the rural areas, then it might be, but on the face value of it, I think it's going to hit the people in the rural areas the more, because the prices of things will go up, and I don't really see supplements, to that, how they are really going to go out of that.
Can we do a comparative analysis of tax system in Nigeria and probably some other countries, maybe like Ghana? What's it like? Do you have an idea, or maybe other countries? Because I don't want us to go too far. I want us to look at, tax in other neighboring countries around us.
You are right. We've always been saying that the VAT rate in Nigeria is one of the lowest in the world, ignoring the effective tax rate that I mentioned. The truth of the matter, in some countries, Ghana, UK, in fact, some countries, you have up to 25%. Some are 17.5%. Some are, higher rate, 15%. And what I want us to deal with is look at how it works in those countries. Because when they say it's 17.5%, but you are entitled to, claim input against the output, it works in those environments. It doesn't work so in Nigeria. Because in Nigeria, you collect this one, you collect that one, and then you add the two together. But there, you set off. We have some very little industry in Nigeria where it works that you set off, like in the manufacturing industry, and not all their inputs are set off. It's only on the products, because all the services they enjoy, they have to charge it to their financial statements, and that affects their profit. They will recover that from the masses. So the way it works in other countries is that you have your output, and all your input you charge against. Not all countries also does it that perfectly well. For instance, if we travel to the UK, that's where Nigerian people easily understand. When you get to a point, you buy some things, and then you get to the airport there, you claim your VAT before you board the plane, and they pay you in cash. That doesn't work out like that in Nigeria. So it doesn't work out, materially in terms of setting input against the output. And I think this is the area that we need to review. If we review that, then every other person will agree that 5% is very low. But then let's take it to the point that, no, really what we are charging is 10% or 11%. But we allow you to claim your input VAT, and so we can align with the global world. If you look at the VAT name, it's value added tax. What we are practicing in Nigeria for today is really not value-added tax. It's supposed to be supply and purchases tax. It's SPT, which is called Good and Services Act or tax in some other countries. GST. In some countries, it's called Good and Services Tax. And if you look at Section 2 of our Act, what it says is supply of goods and services. So it's when you supply goods and services that the tax is applicable to you. So technically, it's goods and services tax. And that means when you supply, you pay. The issue of set-off is also there, but in our own mechanism, even though we have refund section, we have set-off sections, it's not really working fully, to that. Sometimes we call it modified value-added tax. It's being practiced as value-added tax in those other countries you are talking about, but Nigeria has modified it. But we removed the word modified, along the line, and we still call it value-added tax. These are all technical arguments, between practitioners and the Federal Inland Revenue Services when we argue the whole of these things. But the whole bottom line is that if we do it transparently the way it is being done in other countries, of course, everybody is going to agree that the gross rate is very low. But then we need to raise it up with the way it is being practiced.
Okay, dear listener, we're looking at increment of value-added tax. Our guest, the tax consultant, Mr. Azeez Alatoye. The call lines 0805 897 0897. 0805 897 1897. We'll give you a sneak peek and snippet of what the finance minister has to say on VAT.
I want to state that one of the key provisions in the Finance Act 2019 that has elicited a lot of interest is the increase in the VAT from 5% to 7.5%. And to remind us all that the Finance Bill has made copious provisions to improve the ease of doing business. So we have a category of companies that have turnover of 25% and below that will be paying no taxes at all, so zero taxes. And also we have reduced tax rates for companies that have turnover from 25 million to 100 million, from 30% to 20%. The essence of this is to encourage formalization of businesses from the informal sector and also to encourage businesses to grow and become more productive, thereby increasing employment and also meeting the commitment of Mr. President to remove 100 million Nigerians out of poverty over the next 10 years. So the FIRS board has a major task to contribute to this. I want to also announce that the effective date of the VAT increase from 5% to 7.5% will be the 1st of February 2020.
Okay, that was the finance minister thought on the VAT. She made mention of the copious arrangement to improve ease of doing business. Would you agree with that on that?
Yes, I would agree. If we look at the whole of the finance bill, all put together to a greater extent for the SMEs, but may not really be for the bigger players. So it's a mixed bag. But because the focus of the federal government is really to empower and encourage the smaller players, we talk about VAT increase on one hand, but we talk about incentives, which the Honorable Minister had mentioned. They are all in the finance bill. We shouldn't forget that there are 7 acts that were amended, and only one we are talking. So we shouldn't talk of only one increment in isolation. That would be unfair, and that would not be really complete. So if we put everything all together, I will absolutely agree with the finance minister that the smaller players in the business sector, they are really being encouraged by a number of incentives, especially in the company's income tax area, of saying, okay, if your turnover is this, no, you don't pay tax, and all those kind of things. These are encouragement to SMEs. So I think that should also ease their business in terms of ease of doing business, in Nigeria. But it's not really so for the big players. For instance, if you take the people in petroleum industry, just only one amendment, and that amendment is very significant. They've not been paying withholding tax on dividend declared before, so 10% now they have to pay, because their rate of tax is a bit high before, is around 85%. And so the government said, okay, to encourage you guys, you don't pay withholding tax on your dividend, but now 10% is being introduced. If we make the same statement to those people, of course they will say, no, what's the incentive in there you are talking about? So it's, we need to balance, the two. But on the overall, if we look at what the finance minister had said, that's absolutely correct in the sense that majority are in the SMEs. And it's only a few that are the big players, but then those big players are the big numbers.
Okay, 0805 897 0897 0805 897 0897 0805 897 1897 0805 897 1897. Looking at that particular bill, there are some things that are excluded. Some products were excluded from tax, and some were not. Okay, if you have an idea, you might want to probably expatiate on those products and major reason why they are excluded from, the 7.5% VAT.
Yes, we already have some lists of those that are exempted from VAT, and we have additional ones. And these additional ones are welcome, development. And again, they materially focused on SMEs and then educational institution. For instance, the tuition fees of children in nursery, primary school, in secondary school, in tertiary, institutions, is clearly in the law now that it's exempted. Ordinarily, it's supposed to be exempted because anything educational, I honestly do not believe should be charged to tax in Nigeria, whether VAT or income tax. There is a very strong debate now going on the Best Children International School in Abuja that is being subjected to tax, at even Federal High Court held that they should pay tax because they are limited liability, But I strongly disagree with that as a lawyer and as a Nigerian, because you don't tax educational, institution. You don't tax education. The technical import of that is that you are taxing the children. How can government be taxing the children to say you want to, improve education in Nigeria? You want to do infrastructure and the focus of your taxation are students. I've never heard that before. It's very strange and it's illogical. So for me, it's a very good development that it is very clear in the VAT Act that you don't subject any educational sector, be it government, be it private, be it any school, should not be subjected to any tax in Nigeria, with all due respect. So this is a very welcome development. Additional ones are the microfinance banks, the People's Bank, and the mortgage institution. These are excellent in my own view in terms of exemption by the federal government, of Nigeria. For instance, the mortgage institutions, that's going to bring the cost of, accommodation down, because the percentage of people, the gap in the housing in Nigeria, we know is quite huge, in terms of percentage. So those are very welcome additions to the list of exemptions in Nigeria.
What about food? Let's look at food, dairy product, agricultural product. What's your own take on that?
Those are already exempted, and which is fine. But again, processed ones are not exempted. And my take on that will have been that the value added is the one that is supposed to have been taxed. But we don't have mechanism for that, because you only look at the value on the invoice and you apply VAT. And this is why some people used to go to court. For instance, all this food, even including water, you go to court and then you say that the government should not VAT water because they said it's only basic food items that are exempted. That's what we have in the law. So what's the definition of basic food items? And you say the one that the eateries have already processed now becomes vatable. But if you go and buy yam, for example, you buy maize, you buy all those kind of things, they are exempted. However, if they are processed, then you pay VAT on them. I think the value of those products themselves should still be exempted, but the value that you have added, should have been VATed. We don't have very clear mechanism for that. And that's why when people go to court, even on water, the judge was forced to ask whether water is a basic food item or it's not a basic food item. How do you eat without water? I think water is part of food. It's only in Nigeria we don't have, staple, water to drink, very good water to drink. Water is really supposed to be a basic food item and not subjected to VAT. So there are some gray areas, but on the overall, I will praise the finance minister, the finance team, that put this together. Nothing can be perfect, on the first day. We will keep on improving. And also commendation because this is coming after a very long period of time. It was since 1999 we have the Finance Miscellaneous Provision Taxation, Act last. And so we're having another one now. So we hope this one will continue, and any challenges that we noticed, which we will draw the attention of Her Excellency to the Minister, and I think this could be amended. But in summary, these exemptions are welcome developments.
All right, till the Lagos This Morning show, looking at the increment of the value-added tax. So the call lines are 0805 897 0897 0805 897 0897 0805 897 1897 0805 897 1897. Those are call lines this morning. If you have questions or you need clarification on some issues as regarding the increase in the value added tax, it moved from 5% to 7.5%. You can reach us in the studio. We still have our guest, Mr. Azeez Alatoye, who is the senior partner, Ascension Consulting Services. Good morning.
Hello, good morning. Good morning. What's your name? Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. What's your name?
Hello.
Hello, good morning. We can hear you. What's your name? Hello.
We can hear
Hello,
you.
good morning.
We can hear you.
We
Go
can
ahead.
hear you. Go ahead. All right, please call 0805 897 0897 0805 897 1897.
Okay, Mr. Alatoye, let's look at. Okay, I think we have a call. Okay, we missed it. The people have issues with this tax increment at this point in time. I think majorly because not too long ago we just fought the battle of the minimum wage. Let's take this. I'll come back to that. Hello. Hello.
Hello. Good morning. Good morning. What's your name?
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. What's your name? I don't know the number. Yes, you're on to EKO FM. Go ahead. We can hear you loud and clear.
Just go ahead. We can hear you. Give us your name and go ahead with your question.
If you're trying, I don't know which of the numbers you're trying. We have two lines, 0805 897 0897. You could try the other one, 0805 897 1897.
I don't know what's wrong with the phone lines.
Hello.
Hello, good morning. What's your name?
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
Hello.
Okay, obviously something is wrong with that line. But let's see this one. Hello?
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear us?
Hello.
All right.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you. All right, let's move on.
Okay, something is definitely wrong with the phone lines this morning. Okay, so we just, there's still some states who still haven't implemented the 30,000 naira minimum wage. And the government came out and said, we're introducing a new VAT. And people have said it's just like giving something with the right hand and taking it back with the left hand.
That's right.
So what are your thoughts on this? I just coming from that background, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I think that's one of the general comments that had been made, in terms of the government is trying to do some balancing. And that's why I said I don't want to comment on those economic model as to whether some people look at it, okay, now if we push it up to 7.5 and we collect, 2.5 from the masses, it still go back to the masses from employment, perspective. It looks like something like that. But I don't have that fact because I was not part of the team discussing the whole of these things. If that is the case, the people affected by employment of 30,000, naira is actually lower than the larger number of people that are going to pay for it. And so these are the things we need to weigh. And the challenge with that is that if you look at section 40 of the value-added tax that talks about the VAT sharing, a larger percentage goes actually to the state government, which is 50%, goes to the state government. And you have 35% going to the local government, and then the 15% balance goes to the federal government. So the 15% really for the federal government is like a collection cost and all those kind of things to pay the staff, logistics, and all the rest. Now, if you look at it from that perspective, you start, thinking truly that government is trying to push up that 50%, to a higher number for the states so that they can really pay the 30,000 minimum wage. There is a very strong connection there.
Okay.
But as I said, when you look at the economic model, you will see how they even came up to the 7.5%. It could be that if you put all the 36 states, together, and then you look at it that, look, if we put it at this, on a rough average, it will still balance. So the idea of, reducing PAYE might really not work because PAYE is already an IGR for the state government. So if you drop that rate, then it's going to drop the government rate. That's why some of us who are saying if you really want to help the household, you drop the personal income tax, then you can increase the VAT. It might really not work because this is time that the minimum wage is also being introduced. And so it's really an act of balancing that I think the government is trying to do.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello, what's your name? Okay, let's try another one. Hello?
Okay, now, since this is a form of generating revenue, are there other means the government needs to look into to generate revenue?
Yeah, of course, there are a lot of avenue for government to generate revenue. Even looking at the issue of the minimum wage, the people you are paying, that should be the starting point. We need to ask our questions. What are we paying for? What are the services that you are supposed to deliver? Are you delivering on those services? If you deliver on the service, then we shouldn't have problem. So we need to go back and look at our service level agreements between the workforce and the government. Because you are not just paying this money, you are paying for services being rendered by the people. That's why the people agitate. So the question is the government the government employing the people, making available the quantum of work that is really going to be worthwhile for the amount you are paying them? So if you are not making the work available, probably that might be your fault. And so you have to incur an overhead that you are not, being able to generate the revenue. I believe that each of the state governments have income streams that they can generate.
Hello, good morning.
I need to speak.
Hello, good morning.
Go ahead, we can hear you. Please, if you can hear via radio, once you say hello, just go ahead because we can hear you loud and clear. Just go ahead, tell us your name, where you're calling from, and make your point.
All right, so that's to as many people that are trying to reach us. Once you just call in, once you know it's been pegged, tell us your name and go ahead with your question.
We can hear
because
you.
we can hear you right here in the studio. Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Your name, where are you calling from?
Please, am I on to EKO FM?
You're
Yes,
on to EKO
go
FM.
ahead.
Go ahead.
Hello.
Okay. Yeah. The problem
We're
is still
encouraging
there.
you to please listen via your radio. We can hear you. Once you pick, just go ahead. Tell us your name, where you're calling in, and make your point. We can hear you. This is EKO FM, by the way.
Okay, let's try this. Hello? All right, go ahead with
Yes,
the
you are
first,
making it concerning the
Mr.
revenue
Rafi.
generation.
Yes, and that has to do with the IGR, for each of the state governments. You see, there was a time I did a presentation on the solid minerals, in Nigeria in terms of revenue generation. And you discover that there are about 76 solid minerals in Nigeria. And each of the states of federation has different solid minerals, apart from the oil and gas. So these are the areas that the state government needs to work with the Ministry of Solid Minerals and then see how they harness, on these kind of things. They can also, use some sort of incentives to move businesses into their environment. Businesses thrive materially when you don't have violence in an area. And this is something that the government, need to look into. Apart from that, empowering the SMEs. If you empower the SMEs, of course, they are going to pay personal income tax. And all these hard way of tax collection probably should be eliminated in one way or the other. you need to sit down and think on how do people pay tax with ease, probably through the use of IT and all the rest of it. So if there is no act of what we would call a very hard line way of collecting, of course, you are going to have so many people, in the states that are going to be paying personal income tax to the government. Another one is creation of free trade zones or free tax zones to boost, the activities of those free zones. If the states invite, investors to their state, that this is a free zone. The free zone means that the companies in those zones will not be paying taxes at the federal level, but then they will be paying personal income tax of all their employees. And all the employees in those states are going to be paying taxes. So this is going to be a huge jump in revenue to any state that is going to succeed in
Hello,
that
good
area.
morning.
Hello, good morning. Good morning. Go ahead.
Morning. My name is Leko. I am calling from Ikeja precisely.
Go ahead,
Go ahead, Leko.
I want a clarification on something. Good morning, the young man.
He's not a young man.
Good morning, very young.
Very good.
He's not a young man, Leko.
Go ahead, Lincoln.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
To me this morning. So, but my question is, if your turnover is below 25 million, you cannot charge VAT. You are not eligible to charge VAT or to register as a VATable company. And if your turnover is above 25 million, then you are eligible to register VAT and also collection of VAT on behalf of the government. But the question here now is, as a company, if I'm eligible to VAT a business, to charge VAT on a business.
Ouch. Okay, Leko, I don't know if you can call back because you haven't finished asking your question. So you can still call us on 0805-897-0897. 0805-897-0897, 0805-897-1897. All right, those are the call lines. Let's see. Hello?
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What's your name?
Abdulaziz Mubashir is my name.
Where are you calling from?
Let me greet my big boss, my
Yeah.
spiritual father, who is addressing us, and his explanation, so in-depth explanation about our fact is well appreciated because the concept is not too clear when he's trying to break it down to us.
Okay, Abdulaziz, where are you calling from?
I don't know the logic of having a VAT of 5%, and after that, non-exempted VAT of 5%, and after that, the federal government is coming up with VAT at 7.5 with a lot of exemptions. Are we not going to go back to the status quo, to the same level? Because you are having 5% without exemptions now at 7.5 in order to assist the state government. Yet, we have a whole lot of exemptions. I want a clarification to know whether the states are still going to benefit with this 7.5, with this endless list of exempted commodities. Then, what are the plans of the federal government to address all citizens and in Nigeria into this VAT net? Because the attitude of African Nigeria into this tax of the thing. So I think I don't know if I can have reasons or explanation on those two.
All right, thank you, Azeez. We have to let you go now. Your time is up.
All right, thanks very much. For these 2 questions. The first one was when it was 5%, more products are being taxed. Now you move it to 7.5%, and then so many exemptions are in there. Are we not going to be on the same point, in terms of revenue level? If you want to increase revenue level broadly, I think the expectation of Abdulaziz Mubashir is to say that you just increase to 7.5 and then the revenue increase. I did mention the issue of balancing, using economic model for the whole country, which, of course, the Federal Ministry of Finance will have done. Because at the end of the day, if truly those exemptions, which I don't really see, because the additional exemptions are very minor, in my own view. There are only 3 lines of exemption. Some smaller banks, which the contribution in the first instance might not really be big, like the microfinance banks, the People's Bank, the mortgage institution, the educational institution. Ordinarily, you don't VAT them. You just to formalize for the educational, institution, and some little manufacturing of Antwell and all the rest of it. These are only 3 line items. Those exemptions are not really material, to bring down the revenue of VAT. And the general expectation is that the increment is supposed to be very, very significant. And that's why we are saying it's really going to affect the household. But on the other side, just as it has been observed by a lot of commentators, is that, government is taking from one hand and then giving from the other hand. That's where the issue of balancing, comes in. This is also a question of intra-balancing between the rate within the tax itself, not extra, balancing. Extra balancing in the sense between tax and employment, a reward system. So you are trying to balance at all levels. So this kind of balancing is something that I think on the overall should lead to a higher tax, payable to the government. This is my own honest view, but I don't have access to the government model for that.
Okay.
But how to bring all others to tax net? That one, I think the government is working on this digitalized system, on the IT support, in which case all taxes are going to be deducted, at source. And so nobody will be able to escape tax.
Okay. All right, I went to the streets to
Apart
ask
from the
people.
education sector.
Yes, exactly. Apart from education tech sector, I will fight for those one to the end. But Nigeria should move forward.
All right. So we asked people what their opinion is about the newly approved VAT increment. Here's what we came back with.
The 7.5, what exactly are going to? So what benefits right from that? So why is government just always trying to do something that will benefit them at all times? So I just feel not necessary at this time. What do you think that for now?
To stop so many companies. Like not for many companies, they their staff, but they cannot meet up with the target. The company who is paying 5% before, now increased to 7.5%. No, it's an increase. And to affect the community, everything will increase. All right. Like me, I just say it's just like collect back from the masses what you are giving to them. So the VAT is too much.
People are really going through art. It's not that it's not like increasing VAT.
Hearing this, but I've not been to my bank to confirm this thing, but the way people are saying it, before somebody can say on something, you have to know the truth of it. Somebody was just telling me what he's saying. I said, until when I go to my bank and confirm, I cannot condemn something like that. I cannot speak on you of that.
I heard the federal government has started the VAT, but we have not been able to actually see the effect on consumer goods. Maybe at the market, see spike in it. Maybe to take a little bit of while to see how it actually affects.
Maybe the rest of them are not have no work. Why do you want to increase as that? It's not good at all. All right.
I think is that we do not expect that. But the increase in VAT the effect will be on the customers who buy the product because the people producing will not want to get and it will cause inflation since we are buying for 20 naira and 30 naira or 40 naira. So I think
I've not heard anything about this story yet. Certainly it will cost a lot of, to me, my own opinion, from my own perspective, maybe increase and inflation in different price of maybe food, transportation and all. So because automatically when you increase the VAT, people buy and sell too. They want to increase the price of their goods and services. So landlord to increase the price of rent, because automatically you have to pay some bills to Lagos State for maybe land use charge or something.
Okay, that's what we got back from the people, their own opinion on about the newly approved VAT increment. And then majority of them want to know what's the benefit of the increment, Mr. Alatoye.
Yeah. The benefit of this increment is supposed to put in more funds into the hands of the government. And so the government will then have more revenue to fund its projects, its expenditure. And we know the government expenditure is ordinarily supposed to be for the benefits of the Nigerian, people. So we will be looking at it from that angle, theoretically, but practically it might be a different thing on the ground, because application of fund is another issue, which is a major challenge in Nigeria. And it was one of the major challenges that people are saying, that this money that is going into the government, how does it come back to the masses in terms of infrastructures? Because awarding contract in Nigeria, we know how difficult it's going to be, to get things, done. Even though, yes, the existing federal government is trying, but this money goes to the states. And to what extent do the states mend roads, do things that are going to be beneficial to the people? These are the concerns. Apart from increment in salary that you can say now, yes, we can now pay 30,000 naira, to those individuals. What is the people of the state going to be benefiting from these increase in resources to the government is of a very serious concern to a lot of Nigerians. That look, this money will go into the state just to make more funds available for some state that doesn't invest in their people. They don't invest in road. They don't invest in infrastructures. You have a lot of nice reports and pictures and all the rest of it. But really, when you go to those states, you find it in the very sorry states. And these are the challenges. Apart from states like Lagos State, with due respect, Kano State, and some few states that you can say, oh, these are trying, in terms of application of the funds, then it's a bit challenging, for people to really come by with these increments.
All right. We have to dock here. We say a very big thank you to you, Mr. Azeez Alatoye, Senior Partner, Ascension Consulting Services. It's been wonderful having you on the show this morning. And congratulations on your, is it nomination or selection or appointment?
Or delegation?
Appointment as the Amir Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat in Nigeria. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. We will also be running this Finance Act at Sheraton EKO at 4 Points by Sheraton on the 13th of February.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. It's been a custom Formula production with CEO Olaiwola and Damilola Adebayo, who assisted this morning. Thank you to all our parliamentarians, and we sincerely apologize for the phone lines.
And of course, the WhatsApp platforms.
Yes, it's due to circumstances beyond our control.
Okay, we didn't add any VAT to that one still. Okay. All right, thank you to all dear parliamentarians for listening up. Join us same time tomorrow morning on a funky, freaky Friday, 7 a.m. through 10 a.m. My name is Olabisi Omidiri.
And I'm Funmi Omoburio. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Nigeria, which way Nigeria? Which way to go? Which way to go? I love my fatherland. Oh yeah. I want to know. Yes, I want to know. Which way Nigeria is heading to? Which way Nigeria? Which way Nigeria? Which way to go? I love my fatherland. Oh yeah. I want to know. I want to know which way Nigeria is heading to. Many years after independence, we still find it hard to start. How long shall we be patient before we reach the promised land? Let's save Nigeria, so Nigeria won't die. Which way Nigeria? which way? Which way, Nigeria? Tell me which way to go. I love my fatherland. Oh yeah. I want to know. Yes, I want to know.